Triggered instincts. How tiny annoyances or primal triggers spark sudden aggression or monstrous behavior in everyday people. Let's get right into it. Number 1. Triggered instincts. Picture this. You're strolling through the supermarket on an ordinary Tuesday. You're in a decent mood, whistling along to the Muzak version of Dancing Queen, when suddenly, someone's shopping cart smacks the back of your ankle. Bam! Pain flares, and before your brain has a chance to check itself, you're fantasizing about launching that person into the frozen food section with a single karate kick. Congratulations! You've just experienced the first clue to why perfectly normal people sometimes turn into monsters. The caveman software update nobody asked for. You might think you're a civilized 21st century human being. You pay taxes. You say please and thank you. You watch prestige dramas and recycle your cardboard. But under that polite exterior lives your ancient reptilian brain, a savage, twitchy little creature built for survival on the prehistoric savanna. And while saber-toothed cats aren't lurking behind the bread aisle anymore, your brain hasn't really updated its operating system in 200,000 years. It still reacts to minor annoyances like a life or death struggle. Someone cuts in front of you in line. Your amygdala, the brain's emotional security guard, flips the panic switch. Heart rate skyrockets. Breathing quickens. Blood rushes to your muscles. Your body's ready for combat. Why? Because back in the Stone Age, getting shoved around might have been the prelude to a spear in the gut. So your brain learned to overreact, just in case. Now, it's overreacting because Karen just grabbed the last rotisserie chicken. Reactive aggression. Why you want to scream in traffic. Have you ever been cool as a cucumber until someone cuts you off in traffic? Suddenly you're pounding the steering wheel and screaming obscenities normally reserved for R-rated movies. That's reactive aggression. Reactive aggression is the immediate, hot-tempered fury that explodes when you feel threatened, insulted, or disrespected. It's spontaneous, raw. Basically, it's your caveman instincts in a business suit. It's why a mild-mannered accountant can transform into a raging beast over a parking spot. Or why someone flips a table in a restaurant when the waiter brings the wrong dish. Psychologists believe reactive aggression stems from an oversensitive threat detection system. Your brain misreads small social slights, like a disapproving look, as if they're actual physical danger. And your body responds as though you're about to enter a gladiator pit. It's a colossal overreaction. But in prehistoric times, being ready to fight at the slightest provocation kept you alive. These days, it mostly keeps your blood pressure medication company. Why anger feels weirdly amazing. Here's the twisted part. Sometimes, anger actually feels good. Studies show that anger triggers a release of dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical. It's like your brain rewards you for standing up for yourself or screaming at strangers in traffic. That's why people get addicted to outrage. Righteous anger feels powerful, like your own private superhero moment. You're convinced you're defending truth, justice, and the American way, even if you're just arguing about pineapple on pizza. So when someone blocks your way with a shopping cart, your ancient brain seizes the opportunity for a quick dopamine hit. Suddenly, you're imagining dramatic courtroom monologues where you utterly destroy your enemies with words. Your logical brain is trying to whisper, "Hey, chill out," but it's drowned out by your primal brain yelling, "Hulk smash." The hair trigger called low frustration tolerance. Another reason normal people turn monstrous? Something psychologists call low frustration tolerance. Modern life is crammed full of little annoyances, slow Wi-Fi, printer jams, people who reply K. And we're not built for it. Our brains are designed for the wilderness, where problems were big, obvious, and usually at claws. Instead, we're trapped in a world of petty inconveniences, and we have no practice handling them. Your frustration tolerance is like an emotional gas tank. Some days it's full. Other days, the slightest drip of stress empties it out. That's when someone chewing too loudly makes you want to launch them into space. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because your primitive brain can't comprehend that minor irritations don't equal mortal peril. Your mind's motto: if it's annoying, it must be dangerous. the sneaky role of pain and discomfort. Here's a monster-making trigger you probably never suspect: plain old physical discomfort. Imagine you're stuck in a long line. You're tired. Your feet hurt. You skipped lunch, so your stomach's making whale noises. Suddenly, the guy behind you sneezes directly onto your neck. Boom! Transformation complete. You're now a full-blown monster. Studies show that physical pain or discomfort makes people far more irritable, aggressive, and impatient. That's why hangry people snap, or why sick people get mean. Your brain's limited resources get hijacked by pain signals, leaving nothing for patience or social niceties. One experiment found people exposed to unpleasant noises became more aggressive in conversation afterward. It's like your brain says, "We're already suffering. Might as well share the misery." So yes, sometimes monsters emerge simply because someone's feet are killing them. Microaggressions. Tiny sparks, big explosions. Not all triggers are physical. Some are social, and surprisingly small. Say someone rolls their eyes at your suggestion in a meeting. It's barely noticeable, but your brain registers it as a direct attack on your status. Now you're suddenly plotting their social downfall with the intensity of Machiavelli. Social scientists call these tiny triggers microaggressions or social slights. Your brain's ancient survival programming treated status as life or death. Low status meant fewer allies, fewer resources, and greater vulnerability to predators. So even the tiniest social insult can light the fuse. It's why people become monstrous over petty workplace drama, or why friend groups explode over tiny misunderstandings. Your prefrontal cortex tries to keep the peace, but your amygdala's screaming, "They disrespected you." Off with their head. Why we turn on loved ones. Here's a monstrous twist. The people we love most often bear the brunt of our triggered instincts. Research shows people are more likely to explode at partners, kids, or close friends than at strangers. Why? Because we subconsciously believe they'll stick around no matter how monstrous we become. It's like having an emotional punch bag. You'd never yell at your boss like you do at your partner for leaving socks on the floor. Because we're primed to detect threats, even if those threats are just annoying modern inconveniences. Tiny triggers hijack our primitive survival circuits, transforming normal folks into rage monsters in the blink of an eye. It's ironic, really. We've built smart homes, invented rocket ships, and mapped the human genome. Yet one elbow jab in the grocery store, and we're ready to throw down like gladiators in Rome. Because no matter how civilized we think we are, we're all just one inconvenient cart bump away from becoming monsters. Number 2, mob mind unleashed. You're at a concert. The music is electric, the crowd is swaying, the lights are dazzling, and then someone pushes. Then someone else pushes back. And just like that, the sea of people becomes a writhing, angry, unstoppable wave. 1 second, you're cheering for your favorite band. The next, you're part of a human riot, stepping on knocked-over barriers, screaming things you didn't know were in your vocabulary. So what happened? Where did your polite, rational self go? Answer: your brain got swallowed whole by the mob mind. De-individuation, when you become part of the group. When you enter a crowd, you don't just share space, you share identity. Psychologists call this de-individuation, a state where people lose their sense of individual self and personal accountability. It's why an ordinary person might yell at police, loot a store, or flip over a car during a protest, even though they'd never do any of those things on a quiet Wednesday afternoon. Being in a crowd cloaks your identity. You're no longer you. You're a faceless unit in a collective organism. And that collective organism doesn't care about morals, reputations, or consequences. Think of it like pouring 1,000 rational people into one giant blender and pressing puree. Now you're being guided not by thought, but by emotion, energy, and impulse. Anonymity is a hell of a drug. You know what makes people act monstrous? Feeling invisible. Anonymity removes fear of consequences. You're shielded by the crowd, hidden behind chance, covered by chaos. Your brain takes that as permission to do whatever it wants. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo conducted a now infamous study. He had women wear hooded robes and administer electric shocks to strangers. Compared to women who wore name tags and normal clothes, the hooded group shocked longer, more intensely, and with disturbing enthusiasm. The more anonymous you feel, the less you worry about guilt, ethics, or dignity. Mob violence isn't caused by a few bad apples. It's caused by the human brain in stealth mode. Contagion, the emotional wildfire. Crowds are emotional amplifiers. You don't need to feel rage to join a riot. You just need to be near someone who does. That's because humans are wired for emotional contagion. Your mirror neurons light up when you see someone yelling, panicking, or getting aggressive. Without realizing it, your body mimics their posture, your voice raises, your adrenaline spikes. It's biology's version of peer pressure, only way faster and more dangerous. Gustave Le Bon, a 19th century psychologist, argued that people in crowds act more primitively, more emotionally, and less intelligently. He may have oversimplified, but he wasn't wrong about this. When emotions sweep through a crowd, logic goes out the window like a flaming trash can. So no, you weren't planning to punch a cop today, but now everyone's doing it, and suddenly your fist is halfway through the air. The psychology of group polarization. There's another sinister twist to mob mentality. Group polarization. The longer you spend with like-minded people, the more extreme your beliefs become. You walk into a protest thinking, we should make our voices heard. 2 hours later, you're yelling that society must be burned to the ground. This happens because people in groups tend to validate each other's extreme opinions, rewarding boldness and punishing moderation. Saying, maybe we should calm down doesn't win applause. Chanting, burn it all down, gets you high fives and viral clips. And your brain loves approval. Every cheer, every nod, every shared chant floods you with social dopamine. You feel righteous, unified, unstoppable, but also unhinged. Historical mob monsters. History is filled with examples of normal people doing monstrous things as part of a crowd. The Salem witch trials weren't driven by psychopaths. They were driven by frightened villagers, stoked by group panic and moral certainty. Lynch mobs in the American South weren't made up of known criminals. They were teachers, pastors, shopkeepers, normal citizens caught in a fever of cruelty and power. The Milgram experiment showed people were willing to deliver lethal shocks to strangers just because someone told them to. But scale that up into a crowd, the results get exponentially worse. Crowds don't erase morality. They dilute it. Sports, concerts, and festival chaos. It's not just history and riots. Crowds can become monstrous in spaces we associate with fun, like music festivals and sports arenas. Take the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, where overcrowding at a soccer match led to the deaths of 97 fans. Nobody walked in planning that. But crowd dynamics, poor planning, panic, and mass movement turned a stadium into a death trap. Or Travis Scott's Astroworld concert in 2021, where surging crowds killed 10 people. The energy wasn't malicious, but it was powerful, unstoppable, and deadly. When crowds get too dense, people lose autonomy. You don't walk, you get moved. Your body is no longer yours, it belongs to the flow. And if panic sets in, that flow becomes a stampede. Online mobs, the new pitchforks. Don't think mobs only exist in the physical world. Thanks to social media, we've invented digital mobs, anonymous, global, and vicious. Twitter pylons, cancel culture, doxing campaigns. These are the 21st century version of the angry villagers with torches, except now they have Wi-Fi and hashtags. The same psychology applies: anonymity, emotional contagion, and group polarization. Someone makes a mistake. A few people get outraged. That outrage spreads like wildfire. Suddenly, thousands of strangers are calling for someone to be fired, canceled, or publicly humiliated. And just like that, normal people, teachers, teenagers, stay-at-home parents, become monsters with keyboards. Their brains think, I'm doing justice. What they're doing is often cruelty. Why people feel righteous in a mob. The most dangerous mobs don't see themselves as violent. They see themselves as heroes. Justice, truth, retribution. These words give people permission to go feral in the name of something noble. It's not about chaos. It's about certainty. Mob behavior isn't just emotional, it's moral. People feel justified, empowered, even holy. That's the scariest part. A monster who knows they're wrong might stop. A monster who thinks they're saving the world never will. Can you resist the mob? Here's the good news. You can fight the monster inside. Be aware of groupthink. Question your reactions in crowds. Recognize when your emotions are being hijacked. Use the pause button in your brain. Is this you acting, or you reacting to a wave you don't even understand? The more you understand the mob mind, imagine the friendliest neighbor you've ever known. The one who smiles at your kids, helps you carry groceries, and waves from across the street. Then one day, police cars surround their house, and news cameras start rolling. Turns out, your neighbor was running a secret drug ring, or worse. How does this happen? How do perfectly normal people sometimes hide monstrous secrets under dazzling smiles? Welcome to the unsettling world of monsters behind masks. The friendly sociopath next door. You'd think monsters would be easy to spot. Cold eyes, sinister sneers, a maniacal laugh echoing through dark alleyways. But that's Hollywood. Real-life monsters often have the opposite problem. They're too charming. Enter the sociopath, or, to use the clinical term, someone with antisocial personality disorder. These folks might look and act normal. They're funny, smooth talkers. They remember your birthday. But inside, their empathy wiring is fried. They don't feel guilt the way most people do. Their emotions are shallow. And if you stand between them and what they want, money, power, status, they'll steamroll you without a second thought. They're not monsters because they're angry. They're monsters because they feel nothing. It's why some people can run elaborate scams, cheat friends, or even commit violence, all while maintaining a charming public persona. Narcissists, masters of the mask. Another breed of masked monster, the narcissist. Narcissists crave admiration like the rest of us crave water. They're addicted to praise, obsessed with being special, and they will do nearly anything to keep the spotlight on themselves. On the surface, they're charismatic, confident, and magnetic. You meet them at a party, and they're dazzling. But behind the scenes, their relationships are shallow, transactional, and brittle. If they feel threatened, criticized, or exposed, they can turn monstrous fast. Narcissists are masters of the rage flip. One minute, they're charming. The next, they're verbally attacking you, belittling your intelligence, or rewriting history to protect their fragile ego. And afterward, they'll act like nothing happened because they honestly believe they're the victim. Stress, the great mask remover. Stress is the ultimate monster detector. Think about it. Anyone can look normal when life's smooth. But when things fall apart, when there's pressure, fear, or public scrutiny, that's when the mask slips. A narcissist exposed as a liar might rage, gaslight, or smear their critics. A sociopath under threat might suddenly abandon longtime friends or escalate into violence. Stress forces people to reveal their true values. For hidden monsters, those values are often self-preservation at any cost. It's why some people react to a job loss or public scandal by doubling down on lies instead of apologizing. Their mask cracks, and a monster steps forward. Ted Bundy, the classic mask. One of the most chilling examples? Ted Bundy. By all accounts, Bundy was handsome, polite, and well-spoken. He worked at a crisis hotline. He studied law. He seemed normal. Yet behind that normal exterior, he was one of history's most prolific serial killers. People couldn't believe Bundy was guilty because he didn't look like a monster. And that's precisely how he lured his victims. His mask was his greatest weapon. Bundy wasn't a fluke. Many monstrous people rely on appearing charming and trustworthy. That's what makes them so dangerous. Masking in everyday life. Not all hidden monsters are serial killers or con artists. Plenty of everyday monsters walk among us. The coworker who always agrees with the boss but sabotages colleagues behind the scenes. The partner who acts loving in public but emotionally abuses you in private. The friend who jokes in ways that humiliate you but always claims you're being too sensitive. These people aren't monstrous all the time, but they hide their worst traits until it's safe to unleash them. And often, they don't even fully recognize what they're doing. They've worn the mask so long, they've convinced themselves it's real. The chilling calm of psychopaths. Psychopaths take masking to a terrifying level. While sociopaths are often impulsive, psychopaths tend to be calm, calculated, and strategic. They can mimic normal emotions flawlessly, but inside, they feel almost nothing. Brain scans show psychopaths have reduced activity in areas related to fear, empathy, and guilt. For them, people are tools, obstacles, or toys. They don't rage when exposed. They might just calmly adjust their plans. That's why psychopaths often thrive in corporate environments, where ruthlessness can look like decisive leadership. Your charming boss who smiles while firing half the staff might be a psychopath, but they were such a nice person. Whenever monstrous crimes hit the news, neighbors say the same thing. But they were such a nice person. They always said hello. Of course they did. Monsters behind masks know how to be nice. That's how they survive. It's a defense mechanism as old as humanity. Predators blending in to avoid detection. Wolves don't snarl at the flock. They stroll in wearing sheepskin. Masks in romantic relationships. One of the saddest places monsters hide? Romantic relationships. Psychologists call this the honeymoon phase. A narcissist or sociopath love bombs their partner with gifts, affection, and praise. The partner falls head over heels. Then slowly the mask slips. Compliments become criticisms. Boundaries get pushed. Gaslighting begins. The partner starts questioning reality and blaming themselves. Leaving a masked monster is incredibly hard because the victim clings to memories of the charming person they fell in love with. But that person wasn't real. Monsters don't always know they're monsters. Here's a disturbing truth. Many hidden monsters don't realize how monstrous they are. Narcissists genuinely believe they're special. Sociopaths often think morality is just weakness. Even everyday manipulators believe they're just protecting themselves. They see their actions as justified, necessary, smart. Monsters behind masks often live in deep denial. They see themselves as victims or heroes, never the villain. The subtle monsters among us. Not every masked monster is extreme. Number 4. Stress, fear, and the brain. Imagine your brain as a high-tech spaceship. It's sleek, logical, capable of complex thinking and long-term planning. Then suddenly, a meteor storm hits, and the spaceship's AI slams all the controls to emergency override. Alarms blare. Doors slam shut. The cool, rational pilot is shoved aside as a panicked robot screams, "Must survive." Congratulations. That's your brain under stress. And it's one of the biggest reasons perfectly normal people can suddenly turn into monsters. The amygdala hijack. Let's talk about the amygdala, the peanut-sized part of your brain famous for handling fear. Normally, it scans your environment for danger. But under extreme stress, it takes over like an unhinged substitute teacher. This is called an amygdala hijack. When that happens, your thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, basically goes offline. Logical decision-making? Gone. Moral reasoning? See ya. The only priority is survival. That's why a perfectly calm person might suddenly scream at a loved one, throw a punch, or run from a situation that wasn't actually life-threatening. Your brain isn't being evil. It's trying to save your life, even if there's no actual saber-toothed tiger in the office break room. Tunnel vision of fear. Ever notice how, when you're terrified, the world seems to shrink? Your senses sharpen. Time slows. Everything outside your immediate threat disappears. That's tunnel vision. Under fear, your brain diverts resources away from thinking and focuses purely on reacting. Great for escaping predators. Not so great for modern life, where threats tend to be emotional, social, or financial. Tunnel vision can lead to monstrous decisions because people literally can't see alternatives. Their brains scream, fight, or flee, even when a calm conversation would solve everything. The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Everyone knows about fight or flight, but stress responses are more diverse than that. Fight, lashing out, getting aggressive, yelling or hitting. Flight, running away, quitting jobs, ghosting relationships. Freeze, going numb, silent, unable to move. Fawn, pleasing the aggressor to stay safe. Perfectly normal people can flip into any of these under stress. Imagine a manager berating an employee. One person screams back, fight. Another bolts out the door, flight. A third goes silent and can't think, freeze. A fourth smiles and apologizes just to calm the manager down, fawn. None of these responses make someone evil. They're primal survival tactics, but they can lead to monstrous consequences if they spiral out of control. Stress makes people meaner. Stress doesn't just flip your survival switch. It changes your personality. Studies show stressed people become more irritable, less sympathetic, more self-focused, prone to black and white thinking. That's why exhausted parents scream at kids, surgeons snap at nurses, or drivers yell at strangers. Under stress, your brain prioritizes personal survival over kindness or social niceties. It's why someone who's normally sweet can turn into an emotional tornado when they're dealing with money problems, illness, or a crushing workload. Fear changes memory. Here's a monstrous twist. Fear literally rewires memory. When you're terrified, your brain floods with stress hormones like cortisol. This can burn traumatic events into your memory in vivid detail or scramble details beyond recognition. That's why witnesses of crimes sometimes contradict themselves. Fear warps what they saw. It's not because they're lying, it's because their memory has been hijacked by terror. In some cases, people develop false memories. The brain tries to fill gaps in traumatic recollections with invented details that feel completely real. This is one reason normal people sometimes accuse innocent people of crimes they didn't commit. It's monstrous, but it's often driven by genuine confusion and fear. Why stress makes us snap at loved ones? Here's the cruel irony of stress. We tend to unleash our worst on the people we love most. Why? Because those people feel safe. Your boss infuriates you, but you keep your mouth shut. You get home, and your partner says, "How was your day?" And suddenly you're ranting like a supervillain. Your brain trusts loved ones won't abandon you for losing your temper. So it lets the monster out at home instead of at work. It's not fair, but it's deeply human. The insidious power of shame. Fear has a close cousin, shame. Shame triggers monstrous behavior because it threatens your social survival. Humans are tribal animals. Being shunned used to mean death. So shame ignites desperation. Under shame, people lie, attack others, or shift blame. A boss caught embezzling might fire whistleblowers to keep secrets hidden. A spouse who cheated might accuse their partner of infidelity. A teenager caught shoplifting might scream insults at security guards. The goal? Avoid exposure, preserve status, survive socially at any cost. This is why perfectly normal people sometimes do monstrous things not to escape physical danger, but to escape emotional humiliation. Trauma and monsters within. Long-term trauma can permanently rewire brains. Childhood abuse, domestic violence, combat. Each leaves scars on the brain's fear center. People with PTSD often live in perpetual survival mode. Loud noises trigger panic. Innocent gestures feel threatening. Emotional numbness can morph into bursts of rage. Many monstrous outbursts from seemingly normal people stem from unresolved trauma. Their brains are stuck in danger mode, even in safe environments. Mass hysteria, collective stress monsters. Sometimes stress doesn't just warp individuals, it warps entire groups. In the Middle Ages, groups of nuns started meowing like cats. In 1962, in Tanzania, a laughing epidemic swept through villages, leaving people unable to stop laughing or crying for days. These are cases of mass psychogenic illness, where shared stress and fear trigger bizarre group behaviors. It's a monstrous reminder that stress doesn't merely twist individuals. It can transform communities into collective monsters. Stress and moral shortcuts. High stress makes people take moral shortcuts. An overworked nurse might falsify records to save time. An exhausted parent. Number 5. Monsters in the mirror. Look in the mirror. See that perfectly normal face staring back? The one that recycles plastic, helps neighbors carry groceries, and promises to always do the right thing? Bad news. That's the same face that might one day do something monstrous, and then convince itself it was absolutely justified. Because some of the scariest monsters aren't driven by rage, crowds, or psychopathy. They're driven by morality. The halo effect. Your inner angel's dirty little secret. You probably believe you're a good person. So does everyone else. Even the worst people usually think they're good. This is the halo effect at work. Once your brain decides you're the good guy, it gives you a shocking amount of leeway. Psychologists have discovered something wild called moral licensing. When you do something good, your brain feels entitled to a reward. And sometimes that reward is doing something morally sketchy. Ever caught yourself thinking, I donated to charity, so it's fine if I download that movie illegally? Congratulations. That's your inner monster cashing in your halo points. Why the brain loves rationalizing. Let's say you lie at work to cover up a mistake. The monster moment hits afterward. Well, it wasn't a big lie. Everyone else probably lies too. My boss is a jerk, so they deserve it. This is rationalization. Your brain's defense lawyer, spinning stories to protect your self-image. Humans can justify almost anything if it preserves the belief that I'm a good person. That's why people can cheat on taxes, fudge numbers, or even sabotage colleagues, all while thinking, hey, I'm one of the honest ones. Your brain will do backflips to keep you believing you're virtuous, even when the evidence says otherwise. Stanford Prison Experiment. Monsters in uniform. One of the most infamous examples of monsters in the mirror comes from the Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set up a fake prison. Volunteers were randomly assigned roles, guards or prisoners. Within days, the guards, ordinary college kids, turned sadistic. They humiliated, abused, and psychologically tortured the prisoners. They weren't psychopaths. They were normal guys who believed they were doing their job. Zimbardo's lesson: give normal people power, authority, and a righteous label, and you can unlock monstrous behavior frighteningly fast. I was just following orders. Another tragic echo of monsters in the mirror. People doing horrific things simply because they're told to. In the Milgram experiment, volunteers believed they were delivering electric shocks to strangers. 2/3 went all the way to the highest voltage, even while hearing screams, just because an authority figure said, please continue. They didn't see themselves as monsters. They saw themselves as obedient, dutiful citizens. It's a monstrous truth. Under the right circumstances, loyalty and obedience can become weapons. The good person excuse. Here's a monstrous twist. The better someone thinks they are, the more likely they might allow themselves moral shortcuts. Why? Because they believe their intentions are pure. I'm honest, so it's fine if I shade the truth here. I'm a feminist, so I can't possibly be sexist. I'm anti-racist, so I know I'm never biased. This mental shield lets people ignore their own bad behavior because they're convinced they're immune to flaws. That's why racism, sexism, corruption, and cruelty often hide behind people who proudly declare, I'm one of the good ones. Identity, the ultimate monster fuel. Another reason good people do monstrous things, identity. Umans krava balunjing. We cling to tribes, political, religious, national, even sports teams. And once our identity is wrapped around a group, we'll do almost anything to protect it. If you see yourself as a righteous crusader, anyone who challenges your group becomes the enemy. Your brain starts justifying monstrous acts as necessary for the cause. History is littered with horrors committed by people who believe they were on the side of justice. The Inquisition, terrorist attacks, genocides, all fueled by people certain they were fighting for the good. The banality of evil. Holocaust survivor Hannah Arendt famously coined the phrase,